So, hi there, Dave Dobbs here, otherwise known as Dave Field, from my book Laughing Gas, which has caused a bit of controversy, as has my talking about Nibiru. And it's been a bit of a journey talking about this thing, which is really quite a taboo subject. I don't know what most people think of me talking about such a thing, about this 200-day cycle of Nibiru going around Nemesis, our second sun that sometimes we can see and mostly we can't see. And I've made quite a few videos over the last kind of 6 months. I've made quite a few videos, and it started with a dream where I saw this thing flying by our Earth in a dream, and I was told that this is what the fuss is all about. And so the original videos I made were really quite mad, really, because it was based on a dream, and though there's no scientific backbone to a dream, there is a kind of a massive motivation when it happens in your own life and you're told something. And so I went up to the mountains, and I really didn't, I'd had a dream. Fortunately, there was a friend's 50th birthday going on in the Pyrenees, so that was a good excuse to go up there. And when I got up there, and with my ex-partner Dana, we saw this thing up in the sky, and we took a picture of it, and I'll show you that picture. Hopefully it will be coming up on the screen. That was the initial point where a dream turned into a reality for me, where I started realizing there really was something going on, and that all these earthquakes, all these volcanoes, all these sinkholes, all these climatic changes, massive storms and everything else like that, along with all these big geological changes, these shifting north poles, and no end of other stuff and strange anomalies that are going on. And it's been a bit of a journey, and it led me to the final point in my penultimate video of making a prediction that on the 21st of December that Nibiru would fly by. And I based that on a lot of information that I'd gathered over that 6 months of research. Even though Laughing Gas was written really about, when I wrote Laughing Gas, it was written about Nibiru and Nemesis coming through our solar system. But, I've kind of opened this door. My parents are both channels, and or my father died earlier last year, and he was an amazing channel, and my mother is still alive, and she's an incredible channel also. So I've been kind of brought up in that kind of environment. So it's a lot more easy for me to kind of, I wouldn't say easy, anyone can do it, but it has to be done in a form of a practice, or as I understand it, it has to be a practice, and you have to dedicate yourself to that. And I did that for a number of years whilst I was writing Laughing Gas, and I was told that we approach a wall, but I was never told what the wall was. And so it's led to this kind of strange situation where finally I predict that this thing was going to pass on the 21st of December 2015, and sure enough, on the 20th of December and the 24th of December, there was footage of this thing passing. And I also said it would flood in England, and it did flood in England. But actually, what I found is that most people really don't believe anything I'm saying, and there's an enormous amount of doubt about the whole story. And I realised there's not a lot I can do about that, other than shout out my truth and try and show as much evidence as I can find, which I've really tried to do. I really tried to bring everything to the table and try and demonstrate what I'm talking about. I've struggled to believe it myself, and it's caused an enormous amount of difficulty in my own life, because you can imagine many of my friends think I've completely lost the plot. So I think I've lost a lot of friends in that process, or at least I've lost a lot of respect from a lot of friends. But nonetheless, I've tried to speak my truth, and I don't know if I can do much more than that. So I just want to give you an update of where we are right now, because if I have isolated or identified this 200-day cycle of Nibiru going around Nemesis. So if you can imagine, Nemesis has come up from the southern aspect of our solar system, and it's come up, and it's come round the sun, and it's come back down, and it's heading back down now. So it's come up through past the ecliptic of our solar system, where all the other planets are orbiting around the sun. It's come up through that, quite close to the sun, come around the sun, and come back down again. And so though this is a huge, great mass, and it creates all sorts of gravitational anomalies. Nemesis, actually, this second sun doesn't come anywhere near us really, but its furthest orbiting planet that some call Nibiru. There's various different names. Some people call Nemesis our second sun Nibiru, but I understand that the furthest orbiting planet to Nemesis is Nibiru. It's a bit like Pluto is our sun's furthest orbiting planet. So it's a very similar sort of thing. And that our sun is involved in a binary system, and that every 3,600 years or so, Nemesis comes round our sun and then is flung back out again, and to begin its journey right round it out into the sort of out into the universe, far away in a massive cycle round our sun. But it's an ecliptic sort of or elliptic rather orbit, and now it's very close to us, and this is why we're getting all these changes. But every time Nibiru comes to its closest point to Earth as it flies by, it causes all sorts of changes. So we're about from its last. So I said 21st of December, just gone, 2015 was its last its last flyby sort of point where it flew closest to Earth. We can say that 200 days after that, which would be the 11th, around about the 11th of July, will be the next flyby date. Now these are my calculations. I'm not a scientist. My whole kind of research is based on, first of all, channeled materials, the stuff that I channel myself, and then research to try and back that up, and trying to go out and find as much evidence to see whether any of this is true or whether I'm going completely mad. So what's happening now? Well, our governments are going to try and orchestrate Britain to break from Europe. In actual fact, they're going to try and break Europe. We're being America's Trojan horse into Europe to actually break the European Union, and thus effectively break the euro, because the greatest threat to the petrodollar right now is the euro. As you probably know, all the embargoes have been lifted on Iran, or many of the embargoes have been, or the trade sanctions have been lifted on Iran now, which means that they're now selling their oil to China in euros, and this is a big threat to the US dollar. So the only hope that those that are running the petrodollar can do is break the euro, and so we can be that Trojan horse. We can be, the federal government's Trojan horse to break the euro, and that's what this is all about. That is why the election is going to be directly before the next passing. So the election for the euro, for whether we stay in Europe or not, is going to be on the 23rd, I believe, of June, which will be just before the next flyby. And so that's a big thing. And so our international message that we're putting out is that we're disgusted by the sight of refugees, and we don't want them coming in our country. We're offended by the fact that they've come to Europe, and that they would want sanctuary in Europe from the bombs that we know that we've funded many of these bombs. We know that we supplied many of these arms that they're fleeing. And the irony is that we're disgusted by their presence, or that's what the media is telling us. Whether that's really the case, I don't know, but it's really quite an abysmal message to put out to the rest of the world, isn't it? That we are disgusted by the presence of refugees coming into Europe, and they would want to come to England to flee the bombs that we've kind of helped orchestrate being dropped on these sovereign countries that have done nothing to us, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put up these images of obviously the sightings of Nibiru and how I worked out the 200-day cycle. So let me just take you through, because you've got the first sighting here, which is which was actually seen on the 5th and the 27th of August 2011, and this was the first sighting. And then thereafter it becomes 200-day intervals. We've got this next sighting on the on February the 2nd 2012, which is an unknown location, but I suspect it's probably New Zealand, because you tend to have to be in the sort of like southern hemisphere to see it. So it's going to be somewhere in the southern hemisphere, I would imagine, but I don't honestly know where it is, because the person who posted the video didn't say. They were just very curious of what it was. And the next sighting was on the 23rd of November 2014, and there's a big gap there there's quite a few cycles of 200 days that are missing there, and I suspect the videos have either been taken down, or it was just moving much closer to the sun that we couldn't see it at that point. So it's those sightings that led me to come up with a 200-day cycle of Nibiru around Nemesis, and that led to these two sightings at the time that I predicted Nibiru would fly by, which is this sighting here on the 19th or the 20th of December just gone, and this footage here, which was on the 24th of December just gone, 2015. And you know, I was absolutely gobsmacked. I really didn't think anything was going to fly by that time. In actual fact, I said that in my original video that I posted, it was saying that the cycle that Nemesis itself would begin its its last three-quarter transit round our sun on the 7th of November. That's when the fun would start, and we would start seeing an increase in earthquakes, volcanoes, crazy weather, and that sort of stuff, and that would be the time to start getting prepared, and that it would fly by on the 21st, so that Nibiru itself would then fly by on the 21st of December 2015. You know, I all I can do is offer the evidence that has come in that verifies that. I can't expect anyone to believe me, even though I show this footage. People say it's planes, it's all sorts of other things, but for me, I was expecting to see this pass by, two corroborating testimonies come in to verify that. You know, I can't offer a lot more than that. It flooded in England. People say, oh, it always floods in December, but the worst floods we've ever seen in centuries, absolute centuries, all culminating at the same time. I mean, it's, you know, it put enormous pressure on me. Can you imagine the pressure it puts on someone to make a prediction like that? You know, all the 2012 people that were saying this thing was coming in 2012. But to me, all those people that were shouting out that 2012 was the beginning of something really quite mad, they were all correct as far as I can see. And because this thing first came into view in 2011, so we can see it coming around. We've seen crazy storms. We've seen all these kind of like massive anomalies occurring since that time. I mean, they were right on the money as far as I can see. They were absolutely right on the money, and all I can do is offer all those people that were shouting out in 2012 the most respect, really, for speaking their truths, because this thing is really happening, and we've never seen the sort of things we're seeing at the moment. So where does it leave us now? You know, now we're sort of like, we're basically 100 days into the next cycle. So we're halfway. You know, it's coming back onto the, you know, we're basically 100 days into the next cycle. So it's halfway round. It's the furthest point away from us in its cycle, in its present cycle. But this time, when it comes by on the 11th of July, it's going to be much, much, much closer. And so we're going to see much bigger changes, and it's going to have an enormous effect on our oceans. It's going to pull our oceans up quite considerably, and the message I'm being given is that we're being massively helped and protected by on a higher level at the moment by technologies that we simply can't understand. Our science can't understand, our levels of science at the moment we can't really understand the preparations that have been put in place by much higher bodies to help us and protect us in this time. And the reason I wrote Laughing Gas was when I was told that we approach this wall, we would have a choice, and that we would choose east or west. I didn't understand really what it meant, but I wrote the whole book, and I told the story. You know, the book begins with Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again, and it ends with Welcome to the Wall, and this is the wall. And if we choose to leave Europe, we'll be leaving all our human rights. We'll be losing the European Court of Human Rights. We'll be walking away from that. And then I guarantee you all those people that are calling out for UK independence, all of those same people are the ones that want to sign us up to TTIP, which is the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. And we've seen what happened when Canada signed a similar trade agreement, and they've become the most sued nation on the globe as a result of signing that. They can't legislate anything. There is no human rights left in Canada because they can be sued. Anything that threatens corporate profit is a restriction on free trade. Your human rights become a restriction on free trade. Water is a human right. That's why we can't sign TTIP all the time we're part of the European Alliance, because water is a human right. So if we leave Europe, we also leave this protection which is being offered to us, because we align ourselves with something very, very dark, something very subversive, something that will bring the vibration of this nation, the UK will be brought down to a very, very low vibration, and all the protection that's being offered to us will be revoked, because those that put this protection up will not align themselves or protect something which is a subversion to human rights, which is against us, which is attempting to bring this nation down. And so we walk away from that if we do that. And that seems such a tragedy, to walk away from all of those things. I can't see how signing the TTIP agreement is going to keep UK independent. We're not even allowed to see the agreement, but we know that it places intellectual property higher than our own sovereignty, which means we're powerless against it. You can't have a vote to get out of it. You can't leave it. It's not like Europe. You literally get a vote to leave Europe. That's because it's a democratic process. It involves people. It's run. There's no democracy in this TTIP agreement. It's just corporations that run it. There's no democracy in NATO. And the elements that are in Europe that are bringing the whole thing down is actually the European Commission. It's not part of the elected body, as in we have the European Parliament, which is a completely democratic process. It's quite an amazing process, really. It's a proportionately run system. It's one of the most complex and fairest democratic systems that have ever been created on this planet. The fairest system. And so the way the Tories have taken over this system is repulsing everyone out of the system and telling everyone, oh, what a horrible system it is. But they're all the ones that vote. They're all the ones who have completely taken over it. You look, in the last election, we can see that UKIP and the Tories collectively take the greater majority, and the masses just didn't vote at all. And that's the most likeliest thing that's going to happen in this next election, is that you're going to think, I just don't know what to do, and you're not going to vote. And you're going to sit it out, and you're going to sit on the fence like a Humpty. And if you sit on the fence like a Humpty, then you voted. You really have voted. Don't think you haven't voted. In a proportionally represented system, there are no losers. The only losers are the ones that don't vote. You don't, because every vote is counted in a proportionally represented system. So all they can do is try and bore you out of that system and repulse you out of the system. And they're telling you that you should be disgusted by these refugees that are fleeing the bombs that have come from our country. And so it comes back to you, really. It comes back to the individual, what you think. You'll vote by not voting. You'll vote by sitting on the fence and not voting in this election at all. And that is unfortunately the most likeliest outcome for the masses in this country, is to not vote at all. To think, I don't know about Europe. Do I want to be part of Europe, or do I want to be part of America? Do I want to be saddled up to the sort of like a sweaty crack of US imperialism? Do I want to be saddled up to a European democratic process that encompasses human rights, the European Court of Human Rights? You know, it's not really that much of a complicated choice, because I guarantee you all those people that want us out of Europe are also the people that want us part of TTIP. And so we have a choice. And if we choose to cut our anchors and break away from Europe, our fate is sealed, because we lose the protection, and there's no way we have the technology to deal with what's coming in. There's absolutely no way. We just don't have that type of technology available to us, and we won't have for thousands of years on this planet. And so we have a choice, east or west. There is no, there is and never has been UK independence on the actual, in the whole planning of this. There isn't. You know, we either align with the east or we align with the west, and that's the choice. You can confuse it, you can throw anything you like at it, but it's never going to be in the choice that we're being offered. Britain just being an independent state, we will become part of the US empire, and we will lose all our sovereignty as a result of that, because we will have no power against these private courtroom processes that will take over this country once we join TTIP. We lose all sovereignty. Corporations can do anything thereafter. We'll be run by Monsanto. Mon-one-santo. Saint. The one God that wants to rule over this world and genetically modify everything, including, no doubt, the human state itself. And so that's where we're at the moment. And so I can't really say any more than that, other than you have a choice. You have more choice and more power right now than you might realise. Right now you're part of a democracy. If we leave Europe, you will leave all parts of democracy behind. All of our existing constitution, or what was the Magna Carta, it's all been broken up by, you know, agreements like the Nice Treaty that have just broken the original mandates in the Magna Carta, and we've got nothing left. We will be a conquered nation, run by corporations, only corporations. They will have all the power, and thereafter we will be a conquered nation with no choice, no vote as such, because you'll be powerless against those corporations. You'll have no representation, and if you have no choice and no representation, then you've got no sovereignty. It's over. We're conquered. And that's where we are. So I want to finish this video with some footage that I shot in the jungle in Calais around about Christmas time, and I've been waiting for the right time to post those videos. And they're just I just spoke to some of the refugees, or some of those that they're not even refugees, they're asylum seekers seeking refugee status, but actually until they're actually recognised as asylum seekers and not economic migrants, they will never get. They will be never recognised as their human rights will never be recognised. And so I've got a series of these. I've got a series of them, and I'm going to put one on at the end of each video over the next little while. I'm going to keep posting these videos as we lead up to this European election of whether we stay or leave Europe. And the first video, the first shot, the first person who speaks, his name is Rommel. I'm not going to show his. I'm just going to use his first name, and I'm not going to show his face because he's been applying or trying to apply for asylum in Britain. If I show his face, because obviously Britain's not going to accept him, because we're obviously, you know, our governments and the media is running this whole hate campaign of refugees. So I can't show his face because I could risk his application to be recognised as an asylum seeker in another country because of his intention to become to seek refugee status in the UK. If I show his face, I could destroy his opportunity of establishing a asylum in another country. So I'm just going to show bits of his collars, maybe his hands and a few little bits, but I don't show his face. I don't want to risk his opportunity of finding asylum in another country. But you can hear what he has to say. It's a harrowing tale, and I've got several of these tales. It's it was heartbreaking there to see these people that. I mean, it's just heartbreaking, and to see all the British going over to Calais, to the jungle to help these people. I realise I'm not alone in my opinion. I think many people recognise that these people are genuinely in need of asylum, because if they don't get it, they're going to be sent back, probably to Turkey, where their chances of survival are going to be very low. And my heart goes out to them, really. So thanks for watching this video. I really hope that you vote in this European election, and I really hope you vote to stay in Europe, because if you don't vote, then you voted. Believe it or not, you have voted. You very clearly voted. If you just sit on the fence like a Humpty and do nothing, don't think you haven't voted. You really have voted. You've made a very, very powerful choice. You've chosen apathy, and that's how the Tories have won, kind of like such a powerful position in Europe, by repulsing and boring the masses out of even voting. And this will be potentially your last real chance of a democratic vote in this country on the 23rd of June. And not voting is a very powerful vote. And if you choose just to sit it out and you just don't know whether you want to be part of America or you don't want to be or part of Europe, well, if you don't vote, then you voted. Thank you.
I'm from Mosul, and I remember the day when the first ISIS came. There were only 3,000 person, and the Iraqi military over there, they were 62,000. So they first came and invaded Mosul step by step. It was so messy. The military left Mosul without fight. They just gave up. And it was a really short time. They took Mosul only, maybe it was 1 week. It wasn't more than 1 week. Invaded Mosul in 1 week, 3,000 against 62,000. It's really incredible. The army left Mosul without anything, without a real fight. They just left it. Some people say that it was a deal between the government and the ISIS. I don't know really. And they came down here because I couldn't stay in Mosul. I mean, I can speak English, and I've got some experience of Facebook, Instagram, this kind of stuff. The ISIS asked me to join them, to be their translator, which wasn't acceptable for me, because I knew they're gonna fight my own people, which is Kurdish people. It just wasn't acceptable for me, neither for my dad, not us. So they asked me to join them many times, and I refused them. Finally, they started to threaten me, and I just ran away from Mosul.
When you left Mosul,
yeah.
What happened? What happened after that?
Yeah, when I left Mosul, a smuggler took me out from Mosul to Erbil, one of Kurdistan city. I had to pay him $2,000, which I haven't had that money at that time. So my wife gave me some of her jewelry, and I gave it to the smuggler instead of the money. And he said that his name was Ahmed, and I will never forget his name, because I asked him to bring my little brother with me. He refused me. He said that $2,000 is for one person, not two person. He was only 7 years old. And I reached Erbil. I stayed in Erbil for a couple months. Then I got exposed by my family, my wife's family, which is also another story about my personal life. And I left Erbil as well, and I went to Slemania, another Kurdistan city. Stayed there for some months, and got exposed again. I went to Duhok, another city of Kurdistan. Stayed there also for some time. Also got exposed. So my life wasn't quite okay in Iraq. And then I decided to leave Iraq, and I went to Turkey, which I stayed in Turkey about 1 month or 25 days. I don't quite remember. And I tried to go to Bulgaria first. And we walked in the jungle, and we stayed in the jungle for 4 nights and 3 days. We was walking all the time, except for some hours we were sleeping. So when we got to Bulgaria, nearby Sofia, the DC of Bulgaria, we got caught. The police were so horrible with us. They took our money, they took our phones, they took our cigarettes, they took everything we had, and sent back to Turkey. Came back to Turkey. I was so tired. Doesn't have had a shower for three days and 4 nights. I was so tired, and I found some of my friends in Turkey. They took me to their apartment, and I had a shower. After 4 or 5 days I tried to go to Greece by boat, and I did. I reached Greece to Lesbos Island. I reached Lesbos Island, and I stayed there for 5 days, sleeping on the streets. A lot of people were sleeping on the streets. After 5 days, the Greece government gave us a paper which allow us to get board on ships and go to another cities, and I did. I reached to Salonik, and in Salonik I stayed 2 nights in hotel because I had papers. Because I was with some of my friends, so we had papers, and we slept in a hotel for 2 nights. After that, we went to Macedonia, and I was waiting for my papers in Macedonia at the borders, 4 hours under raining. It was a heavy raining night, and I got sick. My cousin was with me. His name was also Ahmed, but his name was true. His name was Ahmed really, because he was my cousin. He's my cousin. He was holding my hand all the time because I got sick because of the rain. It got cold. And we had our paper after 4 hours standing under the rain. So we got board on the train and went to the borders of I think it was Serbia. Yeah. Serbia. To the borders of Serbia. And from there to Hungary. Then to Austria. I had to wait many hours to get the papers of these countries. And from Austria, I went to Germany, which was a free train from Austria to Germany. The German government took us from Austria to Germany. And I reached Germany. I went to Frankfurt. Yeah, I stayed the first night in a camp, in a shelter in Frankfurt. I had a shower, yeah, proper shower. And then I left the shelter and I went to Mannheim because I have a friend in Mannheim, and I went to see him, and I stayed with him for a couple nights. Then I left Germany and I came to Paris. I came to Paris and it was night. Maybe it was about 1 a.m. other night when I reached there, and there wasn't any train from Paris to here to Calais. So I stayed on the street that night. It was a freezing night, and I stayed and slept on the street without sleeping bags, without blankets, without anything. I slept on the street. The next morning I woke up. I went to the train station, which is not the same train station, it's another train station, and I came to Calais. And I lost the counting. I was counting the days before, but I lost it. It is maybe about 2 months and a half or 3 months, I don't quite remember. I'm here for a long time.
And
Here, all of us, we came here to get to England, to UK, and UK government, they just can't allow this. We wasn't expect this from the government. Definitely wasn't expect this. All the European countries, they opened the borders except for UK. Except for UK, we wasn't quite accept this from them.
Do you consider yourself a? I just use this as the phrase which we're hearing all the time, but as I drove in, I saw the sign. I think it was we're not migrants, we're refugees, or we're not migrants. Perhaps it was, but it was along that line. It's a terrible category to be placed into. And I've travelled an enormous amount myself in countries that were doing really well, and I've been an economic migrant, if you will. But would you consider yourself an economic migrant, or would you consider yourself a refugee?
I'm a refugee.
Yeah.
More than a refugee.
Yeah. And would you feel that your plight is very similar to many people on this site?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all refugees, and we are here to get to UK.
Rommel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time speaking to the camera, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Hello.
And you're
البشاق ذلك.
Go for it.
So I'm